He built a house for a woman 27 years younger than him in Pattaya. And one morning, she vanished with almost everything. But here's the detail that changes the whole story. He was never as blind as she thought. Rain hits hot pavement. Neon bleeds across puddles. A city glows like it loves you back. If this story hooks you, a quick subscribe really helps the channel. Because in 10 minutes, everything flips. Pattaya at night looks like a promise. Bars breathing music into the street. Seafood smoke curling above crowded restaurants. Red taillights sliding over wet asphalt. Gold watches. Cheap cocktails. Lonely men smiling too hard. And that contrast, luxury on the table, emptiness in the chest, is where stories like this begin. But this one doesn't end the way you think. Martin was 58, divorced, German. The kind of man people call stable when they really mean predictable. He had worked for decades, followed the rules, paid off what he owed, and arrived at that brutal finish line too many men hit in silence. Enough money to live, no one to live with. And what if that kind of loneliness is more dangerous than debt? Not because it hurts more, because it makes almost anything feel like hope. He moved to Pattaya for weather, cost of living, and a fresh start. That's the polite version. The honest version? He was tired of eating alone, tired of quiet apartments, tired of waking up to no messages except bank alerts and spam emails. Pattaya knows how to read that kind of man in seconds, and it always has. But then he met her somewhere that made the whole thing feel different. Not a bar, a restaurant. That mattered. It was a clean place on Second Road. White tablecloths, soft Thai jazz in the background, ceiling fans turning lazily above polished wood. She was serving drinks to a table near his. Not pushing, not performing. Just moving with that quiet confidence that makes everyone else look too loud. Her name was Nara. She was 29, 27 years younger. And if this sounds like the oldest story in Pattaya, wait. Because the oldest story is exactly what hides the newest trap. She didn't flirt the way the others did. No hand on the arm, no fake urgency, no instant pet names. She spoke slowly, asked about his life, remembered details. When he said he used to repair industrial machines, she asked what the noisiest one sounded like. Strange question, real question. The kind that disarms a lonely man faster than beauty ever could. That was the first hook. The second was restraint. She didn't ask for anything at first. Not money, not shopping, not rent, just dinners, walks.
You can relax now, Martin.
Late night drives past Beach Road while neon reflected off her cheekbones and motorbikes cut through traffic like sparks. They ate grilled river prawns on rooftops above the city. They watched storms roll in over the Gulf. She would look down at the lights and say, almost to herself, so many people here, but everyone is alone. That line hit him harder than any compliment, because it sounded like truth. And what if the most dangerous lie is the one wrapped in something true? For 3 months, it felt almost embarrassingly simple. Martin laughed more, drank less, called his sister back in Munich and sounded alive again. He started buying linen shirts, started sleeping through the night.
I love nights like this with
That's what people don't understand about emotional scams. They don't begin with greed. They begin with relief. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "I don't want this life forever," she told him one humid night over tom yum and sea bass. "I want a home. Not a condo, not a room, a home." That one word rearranged his brain, because now he wasn't just a man in love. He was a man with a mission, a rescuer, a builder, a provider. In other words, exactly where he could be controlled. At first, the money came in reasonable amounts. A new phone because hers was too old for work. Help with her aunt's medical bills, school fees for a younger cousin. Small emergencies, each one just believable enough to avoid panic. Not giant requests. Giant requests trigger alarms. This was smarter than that. Drip by drip. 1,000 here, 800 there. A pattern soft enough to feel human. And here's the trick almost nobody notices. Repeated small payments create deeper commitment than one large one. Each transfer becomes proof that your previous transfers made sense. You're not just paying, you're defending your own story. Martin paid. He bought her a used Honda Click scooter. He upgraded her phone. He covered a deposit on a condo when she said she wanted to leave the chaos near the nightlife district. He told himself he was helping her become independent. That phrase would later haunt him. Then family problems multiplied. Her mother needed repairs on a roof upcountry. Her brother had debts. Her uncle needed money tied to land paperwork. Pattaya and the provinces are full of stories like that, and some are completely real. That's why they work. The scam isn't in the idea, it's in the choreography. Every problem arrived right after tenderness. A perfect dinner, then tears. A beautiful night drive, then a worried silence. A kiss, then a crisis. Coincidence? Maybe. But patterns matter. And this pattern was tightening around him like fishing line. Still, Martin didn't pull away. He leaned in harder. Because now he believed he was building a future. And soon, that future had walls. Land outside Pattaya. Quiet. Privet. A little beyond the loud strip of bars and Russian clubs and all-night massage signs. A patch of earth where the city's noise thinned into crickets, dogs barking in the distance, and unfinished roads running between low houses and open lots. She showed him the land one afternoon. Red dirt, heat shimmering. A few palm shadows. Nothing special if you looked with your eyes. Everything if you looked with your heart. Nara stood in the middle of it and smiled into the sun like she could already see a life there.
And the houses begin right
Here,
after that.
she said. No noise, no bad people, just us. Us. One syllable, thousands of dollars. He paid for the foundation,
Main house should sit right
then the
there,
walls,
catching the sunset
then the
perfectly.
tiles she
Yes.
liked,
It's
cream
exactly as we
colored
planned.
with a glossy finish. Then a larger kitchen because she wanted a real place to cook. Then furniture, lighting, air conditioners, curtains, plumbing, paint, appliances.
If we move the island out by another
He
foot,
chose the water
we gain
heater.
the walkway clearance we need.
She chose the staircase railing.
layout accordingly.
They looked at samples together like a married couple in reverse. building intimacy by buying evidence of it. But the house was not in his name. He asked once, calmly.
We could
She
place
had
the
an
sofa
answer
right
ready.
here, running the length of the
Foreign
wall.
ownership
It crowds
issues,
the entrance. We need
easier
to
local
factor in ceiling
paperwork,
supports as well.
temporary arrangement.
And these
We'll
right
fix
here
it
are
later.
the local forms we need
You
to
trust
submit
me,
by the deadline
right?
tomorrow.
That
Everything else
last
in
line
order.
is brutal because it turns caution into guilt. He signed nothing. That was one mercy. But he funded almost everything. Transfer after transfer. Receipts, chats, photos of progress, delivery slips, voice notes, tiny digital breadcrumbs dropping into a trail he didn't yet realize he would need. And then something changed. Actually, that's wrong. What changed was not her behavior. What changed was his ability to see it. Less texting in the morning, delays at night, more time with cousins, more girls' nights, more makeup for simple errands, more excuses that almost made sense if you wanted them to. And he wanted them to, desperately. Because here's the counter-argument nobody likes to admit. Sometimes older men in stories like this aren't naive. They're negotiating with reality. They see enough to know the risk. They just hope affection will outrun the math. Then Pattaya did what Pattaya always does. It whispered. A man Martin knew from a nearby cafe mentioned seeing Nara in a bar off Soy Bukaw,
You need to disappear tonight,
not
or you
working,
won't make it out of the city.
drinking, laughing with a younger foreigner. Martin smiled it off, said there must be some mistake, went home, sat in the dark of his condo for 40 minutes without turning the lights on. Then another mention. Then a bartender he tipped well said casually, "Your lady likes nightlife now?" That question
I have a
cut
message
deeper
for
than
you,
an
Martin.
accusation.
They know you're here.
So Martin didn't explode. He watched. And this is where the story turns. Most people in love want clarity. Martin wanted pattern. He began saving messages, screenshotting conversations, noting times, matching them against places she claimed to be. If she said she was with family in Naklua, but her social media showed a drink in central Pattaya 30 minutes later, he saved it. If she sent voice notes from a quiet home and a club bass line thumped under her words, he saved that too. He checked bank transfers by date and tied them to her requests. He photographed construction progress. He backed up chats to cloud storage. Quietly, methodically. Not because he had proof yet, because deep down, some hard old part of him had already accepted what the softer part still feared. Then came the mistake. A phone left in his car. Just for a minute. That's all betrayal needs. They had gone to a building supply store to choose kitchen handles, stainless steel or matte black. The kind of decision couples pretend matters because the real question is too dangerous to touch. On the drive back, her phone slid between the seat
The
and
finish
the
on this
console.
is excellent. Very precise.
She ran into a
machining.
mini-mart for
The
water.
weight on this black one
The
is
screen lit
impressive.
up.
Feels expensive.
One message. Is the old man paying for the kitchen too? Everything broke in a single second. Not slowly, not emotionally, structurally. The phrase old man is cruel enough, but it was the tone that killed him. Casual, familiar, amused. Like he wasn't a person, just a funding source with shoes. He stared at the screen. His pulse thudded in his throat. Rain began hitting the windshield in fat, warm drops. People on scooters rushed by under ponchos. Neon smeared red and blue across the glass. For one strange second, the whole city looked underwater. Then he opened the message thread. Weeks of chats. Jokes about him. Laughing emojis. Plans. Timing. Her updates on what he had paid for and what he might still pay for. Messages sent while she sat across from him at dinner. Voice notes sent from his bathroom while he brushed his teeth. Photos from bars she told him she never visited. References to another man. Maybe more than one. Hard to tell. The cruelty was less in the cheating than in the coordination. That's not just betrayal. That's project management. And what if the most chilling part isn't that she lied, but how efficiently she did it? Most people would confront her in the parking lot, scream, demand answers, throw the phone. Ended messy, human, predictable. Martin did none of that. He put the phone back exactly where it was. When she returned, he smiled and asked whether she preferred black handles after all. 10 more days. That was his timeline. 10 more days of smiling, driving, paying, listening, acting
This black
almost
handle
absurdly
disappears
normal.
nicely.
If she
Minimal
kissed his
intrusion on
cheek,
the cabinetry.
he let her. If she said
Paid
she
the
was
bills
tired,
and got the
he
supplies.
nodded.
Good.
If she asked for one more transfer tied to final interior work, he delayed just enough to avoid suspicion and moved carefully. Behind the scenes, he was building something she never saw coming. A case. He took every receipt he had and organized them by category. Construction, furnishings, living expenses, transfers, gifts. He printed message logs, backed up screenshots, had key chats translated into formal English and Thai summaries where needed. He met a lawyer in Pattaya, one of those quiet offices above a noisy street, where legal paper smells faintly of mildew and coffee and old air conditioning. The lawyer didn't promise miracles. Real life doesn't work like movies. If property isn't in your name, the road is ugly. But ugly is not the same as impossible, especially when payments are traceable, promises are documented, and future transactions can still be stopped. That distinction saved him. By one version of the story, the land arrangement itself had vulnerabilities. By another, contractors had not been fully paid, which meant completion and handover could still be disrupted lawfully if funding ceased. Either way, Martin understood something crucial. He might not recover everything, but he could stop the ending she had written for him. And stopping the ending is sometimes the purest form of revenge. He contacted the contractor directly, calmly, verified outstanding amounts, confirmed what had been delivered, what had not, and which appliances were still technically his because he had purchased them separately and stored proof. He froze future payments. He instructed the lawyer to send notice regarding disputed expenditures and misrepresentation tied to planned cohabitation. Not cinematic, not loud, effective. Then he waited. Meanwhile, Nara grew more relaxed. That was the surreal part. The closer she thought she was to winning, the more careless she became. More nights out, More delayed replies, more confidence. Once, over dinner, she even asked whether they could upgrade the kitchen island because a nicer house means a better life. Martin almost laughed because she still believed the game was moving in one direction. But what if the real flip in the story happens long before anyone notices it? When the house was almost finished, he invited her to dinner. Expensive place, ocean view, one of those restaurants where candles fight the sea wind and every plate arrives looking like a small performance. Her favorite food, crab curry, grilled squid, white wine she liked even though she always pretended not to care about labels. She arrived glowing, soft dress, gold bracelet, perfect makeup. Relaxed in the way people become relaxed when they think a difficult chapter is over. For a while, they talked normally. The weather, furniture delivery, a friend's birthday, future plans. Then he placed his phone on the table, screen up. That message. Is the old man paying for the kitchen too? Silence. Not dramatic silence. Worse, mechanical silence. The kind where a person's face empties first, then starts searching for a script. She looked at him, at the phone, back at him. Then came the first defense. It's not what you think. He didn't answer. He swiped. Screenshot after screenshot. Proof. Dates. Transfers. Chats. Timestamps. Jokes. Her lies next to his payments like two columns in an accounting ledger from hell. She started talking faster. Said the messages were jokes. Said friends talk badly sometimes. Said the other man meant nothing. Said she was confused. Said she was scared. Said she loved him. Amazing how quickly love appears when evidence does. He kept swiping. Then she cried. That changed nothing. Because in that moment, Martin wasn't listening to the tears in front of him. He was hearing every lie retroactively. Every dinner poisoned after the fact. Every smile with a second meaning. Every thank you converted into transaction language. He had crossed some internal border, not into rage, into cold. Then he said the line that ended it. There is no home for you anymore. She blinked. He let the words sit there. Then he explained. Payment stopped. Contractor informed. Legal notice prepared. Access restricted. Delivery of remaining items canceled. Appliances he had purchased separately, recoverable. Furniture not yet fully transferred, frozen. The future she had been planning, using his money, his trust, his loneliness as scaffolding, was already collapsing.
Now look what you've done. You
No
ruined
shouting,
everything.
no thrown glasses, just control. And that's what stunned her most. Because people running this kind of
I
game
trusted you with
often
everything I
prepare
had.
for
How could you
emotion.
sit there and watch this
They
happen?
know tears.
I actually feel
They
sorry
know
for you,
begging.
you coward.
They know accusations. They know wounded pride. What they don't always know how to handle is documentation. She switched tactics instantly. Anger, then pity, then blame. She said he was trying to destroy her life. He said, quietly, "You started that." She said he couldn't do this after everything they had shared. He almost asked which part she meant, the dinners, the lies, or the jokes with the other man, but didn't bother. The answer was already on the phone. And then came one final twist. The other man, gone. Not metaphorically, practically. When Nara realized the house was no longer a secure prize and the money stream had dried up, whatever alliance existed around her began evaporating. The younger guy who joked about the old man suddenly stopped appearing in tagged photos. Calls went unanswered. Messages slowed. Because when the fantasy is funded by someone else's wallet, loyalty has a very short half-life. That's the hidden economy of places like Pattaya. Not just sex, not just romance. Expectation, projection, status, escape. Everyone sells a version of the future, and everyone hopes they're not the one buying fiction. But once the money stops, truth gets very efficient. Within days, the damage spread fast. The nearly finished house stalled. People asked questions. Deliveries were rerouted or held. Access became messy. The dream that had looked solid in sunlight photos turned fragile the second paperwork and payment trails entered the room.
Martin didn't get every dollar back. He knew he wouldn't. That chapter was over the moment he chose trust over structure. But she didn't get what she expected either, and that mattered. Because revenge in real life isn't usually about winning everything back. It's about refusing to fund your own destruction. It's about denying someone the ending they scripted for you. Martin moved out of his condo a month later and rented a smaller place farther from the main nightlife strip. Less neon, more quiet.
They look good. How much?
Morning
Best price,
markets
just
instead
for
of
you.
midnight bars. He stopped chasing explanations. Explanations are addictive. They make pain feel productive. What he wanted instead was distance. He still walked the city at night sometimes, past beer bars glowing under pink light,
It's beautiful.
past
tonight,
old
isn't it?
men leaning
The
into
rain
borrowed
makes the lights look
laughter,
incredible.
past
Really
restaurants
does.
where first meetings
glad
were
we
happening
decided
at
to
that
sit
exact
outside.
moment, under hanging lanterns and ceiling fans. He didn't become bitter exactly. He became precise. That may be the real transformation. Before Nara, he wanted to be chosen. After Nara, he wanted to see clearly. And if that sounds less romantic, it is. It's also safer. There's a brutal modern parallel here. The same mechanics driving online romance scams, fake crypto confidence games, and emotional extortion all live inside this story. Create trust, mirror desire. Introduce controlled need. Reward compliance with intimacy. Scale commitment. Then cash out. The technology changes. The psychology barely does. But here's the part people argue over. Some say men like Martin should know better. That a 58-year-old financing a 29-year-old's lifestyle in Pattaya is asking for disaster. Others say, loneliness doesn't cancel your right to be treated honestly. Both views contain truth, and that tension is exactly why stories like this hit so hard. They're not just about greed. They're about human hunger colliding with power, money, age, fantasy, and denial. So who was Martin at the end? Not a hero, not a fool, just a man who got played, realized it before the final move, and refused to keep playing his role. In a city built on performance, that's rarer than people think. Because Pattaya is beautiful at night. That's the problem. Neon on wet pavement, music leaking from half-open doors, a rooftop dinner that makes loneliness feel temporary, A woman who seems calm, soft, different. A future sketched in tiles and paint and kitchen fixtures. It can all look real. Sometimes parts of it even are. But dreams are dangerous when they're built in someone else's name.
And sometimes the person you think you're using is the one quietly collecting receipts, backing up chats, and writing the final scene. So if you ever find yourself in a story that feels too perfect, ask the ugly questions early. Who owns what? What is documented? What changes when money stops? Because the answer to those questions tells you whether it's love, dependency, or a transaction wearing perfume. Martin lost money. He lost time. He lost a version of himself that still believed gratitude and loyalty automatically travel together. But he kept one thing, the ending. And in Pattaya, sometimes that's the only thing worth saving. If you felt this one, subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if you want, tell me in the comments, was Martin naive or was he just human? Either way, the next story gets even darker.